Lesson 3. I'm going to explain why I want you to fall asleep to meditations and what that is doing in your brain and how that will translate to your labor experience. So, why I want you to listen to relaxation meditations is because it's going to help your body sync up and remember to relax if you hear those relaxation meditations in labor. So find ones that you really like, that you think that you might actually want to pull out and use when you get to labor and birth, because your body is going to recognize that and it's going to associate those sounds and the tracks with the feeling of falling asleep. And that's going to automatically get your body to regulate into that parasympathetic nervous system and help relax the tension, as your body is remembering that it used to fully fall asleep during these. Now, the second part of kind of how this works is your brain waves and how you're cycling through as you fall asleep, how you cycle through different levels of consciousness. And this also relates to our brains in labor, especially when we are in like a physiological birth setting where we're allowing our hormones to take over and give us all of those benefits. So I'll explain 4 different brain waves, how they're working like while you fall asleep and in your daily life, and also then how that translates to birth. So the first one that you're probably most often operating in is called beta waves. So that's like the highest level where your, gamma is the highest level above that. But in most people's day-to-day life, they're going to be operating in beta. And that's when you're thinking, you're using that prefrontal cortex. Maybe you're like giving a speech or giving a presentation at work where you have to actively be thinking. That is your beta brainwaves. Now, in early labor, as you kind of feel those first feelings of excitement and things like that, and you're still going about your daily life, you'll often be in beta brainwaves, but we need to help you come down from that. The next level of brainwaves, or as you cycle down into subconsciousness, is alpha. Alpha is like if you just did a task that you were concentrating on, and then you kind of step back and sit down and take a break for a minute where your brain first feels that relief where it can kind of turn off a little bit. That's alpha. And then as we get into, for birth, as you get into that late early labor, maybe very beginning of active labor, you're going to start cycling into alpha, where you need to start kind of going a little bit inward, but maybe you're still chatty in between. You're not fully like turned off to the settings around you. That's when you are operating in alpha, and we need to keep going deeper. So the next one is theta brainwaves, and theta brainwaves in your like daily life is like, have you ever been driving and then you realized, oh my gosh, I just pulled home and I don't remember my whole drive home, because it's something that you have so routinely done and you are just kind of like on autopilot. And maybe you are like thinking about other things, having like creative thoughts and good ideas kind of coming in your head, but your body is doing something else, like driving your car. If you know what I'm talking about there, those are theta brainwaves, where your body is kind of just on autopilot. Maybe your brain is somewhere else, but you're not having to actively concentrate on the task that you're doing. And that in labor is where we want to be during active labor, where our body is just allowing these surges and these waves and these contractions to kind of come and go and flow through, but our brain is not physically focusing on those things. Our brain is elsewhere. You start to feel a little out of body. You start to not really notice your surroundings anymore. Maybe you don't even realize kind of like who's in and out of the room, or if there's any other conversations happening around you, you're not really in tune with them, and you kind of like stop conversating. And then the deepest level is delta, and this is when in your daily life, this is when you're sleeping. So this is the deepest state, those like when you are so hard asleep that you're not even dreaming anymore, your brain is so just shut off. That is the delta brainwave. This is where we want to get to through, the very intense parts of birth and the late stages of active transition and pushing. And if you can get into delta brainwaves during birth, this is when you might have heard people say, I was falling asleep in between my pushes, or I got to 10 centimeters. And if you've looked at my labor spark notes posts, the stages of labor spark notes, I put in there this stage called rest and be grateful that sometimes gets forgotten about after you're 10 centimeters, but before you start to push, where you actually just fully like sometimes fall asleep and you're not there. It feels very out of body. You're in this like time warp. You don't really have a sense of time, and you often actually are sleeping. That's when your body has fully been able to get all the way down into delta brainwaves, and it releases the highest level of endorphins. This is that like ecstatic birth, the euphoric birth, that people often, want to experience. So by going down and cycling through these different brainwaves in your daily life, especially with the falling asleep with the meditation tracks, you can see how it will translate into your labor experience, where throughout the different stages, we want to keep cycling down in those brainwaves so that you can receive all the benefits from being in that delta brainwave state. So turn on your tracks, find ones that you really love so that you can trigger those back into your labor and remind your body of what you want it to do, fall asleep, and have fun.